12 habits. I said I'd talk about 4, but I'm going to combine 2 of them because they pretty much go with one another. And I find these to be foundational. When I do workshops and programs, I always send out what I call a behavior sheet to the client in advance. And it has the habits listed with a brief description. And I say, find out which one of these habits, which ones of these habits are most resonant for the participants who are going to be in our program. And these 2, one of these 2 always comes up. So it's very widespread. And these habits are reluctance to claim your achievements and expecting others to spontaneously notice and value your contributions. Now you can understand why they go together. You're reluctant, or your client is reluctant to talk about their achievements. You may feel uncomfortable. You may feel that you'll be perceived of as arrogant or all about me. You may fear that if you talk about what you've achieved, that it will be taking away from other people on the team, and you're very aware that the accomplishments you've made are embedded in your team. So for whatever those reasons are, or you've seen it done badly, I hear this a lot. I don't want to be like that jerk down the hall, it's always talking about how great they are. So it's pretty widespread. You can see the reasons for it. They make sense. But if you don't have a strategy for dealing with that, if you're not finding a way to get comfortable, your client's not finding a way to get comfortable talking about their achievements, they often default to a passive strategy, which is expecting others to spontaneously notice and value the contribution that they're bringing. And I hear people say, I hear women say, I believe that if I do great work, people will notice, or I believe if I do great work, people should notice. And they probably should. And, if we lived in a perfect world, they would, but we don't. And people are busy. And especially in our virtual world, it's very hard to be aware of what everybody's contributing. So it's really important for women or for men who struggle with this, because this is not, as I've learned since the book came out, this is not just something that holds women back. It's so important to to figure out how you're going to bring the notice that you need to bring to the achievements and contributions you've made. The reason it's so important is that what I find is if you don't, and I'm using the you voice, but I'm talking to you as coaches who can spread this on. If you don't do that, over time, you will start to feel undervalued, under-recognized, underappreciated, and you will disengage, because it is pretty hard to stay actively engaged in a job when we don't feel that that we're being recognized, that what we're doing is being appreciated. So we undermine ourselves in that way. And I've interviewed far too many people who've left good jobs. And at the end, what they say is they never knew what I could do. They never appreciated how I could have contributed. They never understood the talents I had. And sometimes that just happens, but we don't want that to happen because we didn't make the effort to talk about what we could have done. So how do you do this? You need a strategy. I hope I've convinced you. You need a strategy for doing this. Your clients need a strategy. Hoping other people will notice what you've contributed is not a strategy. It is entirely too passive. One of the strategies that I talk about in the book is very vivid, and I've learned two things from it since the book came out. And that was a woman I worked with, coachee. Her name was Ellen. She was out in Silicon Valley. She was an engineer. She was at a, pretty famous technology firm. And she had a good job and a good position. She had a new boss. They were not co-located in the same place. So she didn't have a chance to really talk to him. But when he did her performance review, they came together at the headquarters. And one of the things he said to her, he said, you do a really, really fine job with the tasks I give you. But one thing our team needs is to be more recognized and more known for what we're doing. We need to be connected. And I don't see that from you. And I need you to be more out there, more visible, more a spokesperson for what we're doing, meeting people, just a more visible presence. And Ellen said, she said, when he said that to me, I really felt as if he had like kicked me in the stomach, because she said, that's exactly what I'm good at. People are constantly coming to me. They're asking questions. I get emails, I get texts, they drop by, how can, do you have any help for me on this? She said, I'm a real go-to person. And the fact that he had no idea about that made me feel completely unseen and unappreciated, and like as if he were not the boss for me. And she kind of went down a rabbit hole about this for a couple of weeks, feeling really bad about it, until she realized that he had no way of knowing. They weren't co-located. He didn't see who was called. He didn't know who was calling her, coming in and out of her office. He didn't know who she was in touch with. And she thought, really, he doesn't know this about me because I have never made it clear to him. So she came up with a strategy that was small but bold, in that she decided she was going to send him an email every Friday morning, first thing. And it would be between 1 and 2 lines. And it would just be, Dear Jim, this week I connected with, and then 3 to 5 names. And then best Ellen, that's all. Dear Jim, this week I connected with 3 to 5 names, no fewer than 3, no more than 5. 2 lines maximum. Sent it off. So she emailed it to him. She didn't hear back from him. The next Friday morning, she sent another one with different people, of course, who she talked to that week. Didn't hear back from him. She did this for 8 weeks in a row and never got a response. And she said, I felt foolish sending this email to him. He was going to think, who is this woman who's emailing me every Friday morning to tell me who she talked to? But she persisted because she felt like she had to get that information across to him. And about 2 months later, she ran into him at an event, and he came right up to her and he said, thank you for sending those emails. That is information I need to know. It helps me understand who our team is connected with and where we're visible. So I need to know that. Now, this story, to me, there are 2 things in it that have, as I said, stood out in retrospect since the book came out. And one, it has to do with him calling out that what she shared was information. So I think for people who are reluctant to talk about what they have contributed or achieved, that thinking of that as information that can legitimately be useful to someone else, especially your boss or a senior person or other members of your team, that information can help them do their job better. So I think reframing, people say, oh, I don't like to brag. If you don't like to brag, don't brag. But share information about what you've done, and thinking of it in that frame of information is enormously helpful. And the other thing about this story that's become more apparent to me since the book came out is that the reason it worked is because Ellen took a risk. What she did, sending that email and then sending it again every single week, even when she didn't get a response, it felt very risky because she felt like he was going to think, what's wrong with this woman? But she persisted. And it's important to think about that, because whenever we change a habit or behavior, and after all, these are habits, reluctance to claim your achievements is a habit. Expecting others to spontaneously notice and value your contributions, that's a habit. Whenever we are trying to break a habit, we're trying to practice something different. And this feels uncomfortable. And even when it's a small risk, like sending an email every Friday morning, even then, it requires that we, get out of our comfort zone and that we take a risk. So those two habits work very well together. One other thing I'd like to say about that is I find it much more helpful to coach people when they want to talk about when they need to talk about what they've contributed, to use the language of contribution, not achievement, because it embeds it in the context of your team and your organization, which is not only more humble, but more realistic than to just talk about, I achieved this and I did that. And, those are the kinds of behaviors Marshall was talking about in What Got You Here. So using that language of contribution really helps embed it.